something that somebody might be interested in. Do you have any questions in general? I've got more than enough people here now to start. I consider today an important day, and I was getting a little worried because people were only trickling in, but they're here now. This particular lecture has a lot of questions asked from it, especially for the L4. That's the test you'll take on Wednesday. That's the last of the lecture exam. No, I'm sorry, not L4. Now I got it mixed up. L3. L4 is the final, and that's on Thursday. Okay, and I want to check on that I didn't make a mistake. Okay, it's the same test. Everything's all set up. I just don't want to misstate anything here. But anyway, today has a lot of information. I don't consider it tough information unless you're distracted, and you have to pay a little bit more attention to this. I always go over this lecture, although I've given it so many times. I always go over it again before I ever give it, so that I can be calm about it and make it make sense. Okay, now, before we get to doing that, do you have any questions? Okay, just looking around. I always look at the board to see who's here. I know I have a roster being tallied for me, but I like to take a look at this and then I can match it up. Okay. Well then, this weekend, depending upon where you're at, I would suggest that you do the following, or at least consider taking my suggestion. First and foremost, get the 2 chapter outlines out of the way. I've got a couple in, but they're not due until next Wednesday. They are not going to be due on the day of the practicum this time. They're going to be due Wednesday. I've already sent you a message to that effect, and I'm going to send you another one, and I'm going to keep saying it every day, so we know we had a chance to get it across. I need time to grade on Thursday. But I can't be doing that if all these outlines and other things are coming in. So the outlines are necessary if you want to count your Zoom credit. And I presume, that's interesting. I presume that you would want to count that credit. Okay. If you don't, well, you don't have to do it, but I think that would be a mistake too. These chapters follow closely what we're talking about with the nervous system. Somebody was going to say something that looked like.
That was me, Charlie.
Yeah.
So for the 2 outlines that are due on Wednesday, is it Wednesday at 12 o'clock or Wednesday before class or Tuesday 12
Wednesday
o'clock?
ends at midnight.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, Wednesday midnight. That's fine. I'm going to be up way past midnight. Last night I was up till 4:15, and then I worry: can I get to sleep? If I can't get to sleep, I'll make a mess of the class. I don't want to do that. But I go right to sleep. I told you that if I can't get to sleep, I try counting and naming the bones of the axial skeleton. It always puts me out. You always forget one of them. You forget the lacrimals, and you forget the vomer or something like that. You remember those guys. That works for me all of the time. Okay, anything else? Okay, I was saying things that you might do this weekend. You're not ready for all the practice tests, but you are ready for the ones on tissue, and you will be ready for the one on the nervous system after today. So you can go ahead and work those. rework them until you got them correct. And there's an endocrine test, but you're not ready for that yet because we won't have that lecture until Monday, and I have it scheduled. You'll see it in just a moment. Okay. There are two 4-point extra credit opportunities. One is the histology study guide. The sooner you can get that put together, the better. It seems like or sounds like I'm telling you to do everything right now and get it out of the way. Well, if you do it now, you don't have to do it later. And if you do it now, it becomes a valuable tool to study from. If you wait till later, you still got to do it, and it's a worthless tool. So get that study guide in. Now, I don't care how you submit it to me. Those of you who have a scanner, that's the classy way to do it. But you can download it, possibly uh, type on it, uh, resave it to your computer, and then put it as an email attachment. If you can't do it that way, take a photograph. Take just a cell phone photograph and send it to me. It's only about 2 pages long, and that'll work. The other 4-point opportunity is a bonus exercise. Uh, we'll see if that's what I called it on the module when we move over there in just a second. That has some questions uh, that are a grab bag. They're on the endocrine system, so you can't answer all of them now. You might have to wait till Monday to finish it, or you can look them up, of course. And it also is on tissues, okay, and on the organ systems of the body, and what organ is primarily composed of what tissue. Okay, these are all things that are very valuable to know in approaching these last tests. Okay? And that's worth 4 points. If for some reason you only turn in one, well, you'll get the 4 points. But to get the 8 points, you'll need to turn in both of those. Okay. Okay, so right now extra credit's flying around, but it's the same amount that other classes would get from me anyway, and it just happens to be bunched together, mainly because the class is bunched together in this short 8-week period. Okay, I will not accept any extra credit assignment or outline after Wednesday. I mean, my computer will accept it, but I'm sorry, I'm going to ignore it. It's not going to count. And I know, unfortunately, there's always some extenuating circumstances stance comes up at the last minute. I'm telling you, do not wait till the last minute to do those. I do not have time to deal with them when I'm going to try to do all that grading on Thursday. Yes, Canvas grades everything, but I got to correct Canvas, uh, and add in the extra credit and everything. Okay. I was just told this morning that I cannot submit your grades until the 7th of August. I would normally submit them like the 28th or 9th of July, right after our final exam. Some people need to get scholarship applications done or other things, but I won't have the ability to submit them. If you absolutely need a letter or something, I will write it for you and I can forward it uh, before I even send in the grades. That's possible. Okay. The reason they're extending this period of grace, if they want to call it that, to the 7th of August. They want to give people enough time to apply for an excused withdrawal. I'm going to assume you know what that is because they've sent you that information. Or a pass, no pass grade. nobody in here needs pass, no pass, as far as I can see. On the other hand, if an A is a great grade, a B is not a bad grade at all. A lot of people have gotten through our program, got into the nursing programs here or at other schools. Some have actually even gone on to be uh, uh, not just BSN, but also MDs, okay, with a B. But you don't want to get more than one B when it comes to the Saddleback College nursing program and the prerequisite courses. One they'll handle easily, okay, uh, but if you're going to get a B, you really want to get it maybe in physiology, the hardest of the courses. You don't want to really waste that B if you're going to get one on Bio 11. Okay, but it's a good score. I don't have any problems handing out Bs. I know that person may have to work a little harder in the next class or something like that, but I've just seen too much success with A's and B's. The C is the choker. If you get a C, uh, you will probably not get into the Saddleback nursing program. Okay. Now, most people are not going to get in the Saddleback nursing program anyway, even if they think they are. Most of you have actually told me that you are going to apply. That's great, but you need to apply at other schools as well, because Saddleback can't handle that many students that wish to come in. Other schools have the same situation, uh, but all in all, people can fit in somewhere close by anyway. And a lot of them, of course, do make it into to Saddleback, but not with the C. Okay, as instructors, we often talk about things that the students don't hear. It's not to keep it secret. It's just we don't think that they even care about this or that. Well, the C grade you should care about. It's the death grade. You cannot take the class again to improve, and you can't go anywhere with it. That's the So if you see that you're going to get a C grade, and I will let you know what grade I'm going to give you before August 7th, before I actually turn them in. It will give you time, if you're getting a C grade, to consider asking the admissions for a uh, pass, no pass grade. And then if you get a no pass uh, uh, grade, that would be determined by me. You would ask me, instead of the C, please give me the no pass. And that's what'll happen. Okay. I don't want your career to end for one possibly bad semester. Okay. Most of you aren't in that situation. I hope none of you are, but if it comes to it, I'll get the grades out early enough to you that you can make that decision. That decision has to be made by July 31st, and you have to request it of them. That gives them time enough to the 7th to set it up in the grading program and allow me to choose it. I will not choose pass, no pass for you. You'll have to tell me you want it. Okay. Okay. But normally, what we're looking at is some pretty darn high grades in this class. Okay. That bring up any questions? Okay. Then we'll go. Okay. This froze. Whole screen froze. What we've had to do in the past is just wait a little bit. There it goes. Okay. I don't think you're seeing this. I'm on week 1. You're not seeing that, are you?
No.
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 Okay. Don't know why you're not seeing it. Now are you seeing it? Should see it
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he.
Well, what happened? I don't know why it froze anyway. It has done that to us 2 or 3 times. I know a person who's taking art classes, and boy, do they freeze up. And but we're fine. Just a momentary delay. Get rid of me and you. We'll go down to okay. Week 7, module 7 has really gotten extensive. Okay, we did the nervous tissue lecture. We did yesterday autonomic nervous system, and there's no V in there. Oh God, I'm not going to put up with that. Okay, autonomic nervous system. And then there's a recording from yesterday. And here's our lecture for today. Spinal nerves in the ANS. When we finish that, okay, I'm going to go further down and show you the histology slides that I promised to post for you last night, and I did. Okay, plus another one. Okay, this is titled, of course, Spinal Nerves and the Autonomic Nervous System. Okay, spinal nerves are our way of communicating from the peripheral area of the body to the central nervous system. There's got to be communication between the two. Nerves and neurons from one have to reach the other. These are the spinal nerves here in these models, and they're all in yellow. They could be longer, they could be a little shorter. Any model that you get a hold of show it differently. But you'll notice that they go up and down the vertebral column. Here's the cervical region, the thoracolumbar region. Actually, this is the thoracic region. Here's the lumbar region, and here's the sacral. Okay. The spinal nerves, it should strike you right away, are in pairs. We're bilateral here. Okay. Do not try to count them here. Okay. There are 8 pairs of spinal nerves in the cervical region. There are an additional 12 pairs matching the 12 vertebrae of the thoracic region. There are 5 pairs matching the 5 lumbar vertebrae in the lumbar region. And there are 5 pairs in the sacral region, and there's 1 for the coccygeal. Let's add that up. I told you the cervical region has 8 pairs, so 8, 12 is 20, 5, 25, sacral region, another 5, 30, and we can't see it in this model, but the coccygeal region contributes 1 more pair for 31. 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Now, the sacral region is considered to be divided into 5 parts. We know when we hold up the sacrum, it's been fused. Okay, but those bones originally weren't fused in the embryo and in the fetus. But we count them as 5. And we do have 5 pairs coming out of that region. But when we add them up, which one doesn't make sense? 1 for the coccygeal, 5 for the sacral, 5 for the lumbar, 12 for the thoracic, and 8 for the cervical. Which region doesn't have what you would think is the matching number?
The cervical?
Yeah. Normally we think of the cervical as having 7 vertebrae. So, gee, isn't it 1 pair of spinal nerves or vertebra? No. Every vertebra has a pair of spinal nerves coming out from it at its underside, or the inferior area. Only one of them, the very first one, C1, the atlas, also has a pair of spinal nerves above it. If you ran your hand up your neck at the back until you think you can feel where the foramen magnum, that large hole, is, okay? The first set of spinal nerves comes out through the foramen magnum on top of C1. So C1 has a pair on top and below. All the rest have theirs below. It gives us 31 pairs. 31 paired pathways to go in to have information then go up to possibly the brain or down to the rest of the spinal cord, and for the information to come back out. The autonomic nervous system makes heavy use of these spinal nerves, but so does the voluntary nervous system. So when you get a stimulus that comes in and warns you that there might be, for instance, some danger, or like a bee, for instance, has landed on your arm and you want to swat it away, which may not always be a good idea. But if you're going to swat it away, you're going to do it with skeletal muscle. And that afferent nervous system comes in here this way also, and the efferent comes out. The voluntary comes in, the voluntary goes out. The involuntary goes out. So the spinal nerve is multi-tasked. It can work with the autonomic nervous system, and it works also with the voluntary nervous system. Here's the breakdown that we just mentioned. Okay, I move back to this because, as I said, if anybody gets lost, you never get found again. So just the simplest thing to be said once again, these yellow paired spinal nerves are the way into the central nervous system and out from it back to the peripheral nervous system. It's our way of communicating with the central nervous system. If you don't have that, then you don't have any feeling, you don't have any sensation, you don't have any response. Okay. You've seen this before. It's nice to see something familiar, actually, at this stage. This is a cervical vertebra. And in the cervical vertebra that we saw before, so I'll go through it faster, we have gray matter in the center, which look like moose antlers, white matter surrounding that. The white matter has myelinated axons, neurons with myelinated axons, heavy and lipid, and they appear white. Okay. Here's the spinal nerve over here. This is the yellow structure that we just saw. They have it shortened, okay, in this picture. It could be longer, as I mentioned a little bit ago, and then it would look a little bit more like the picture right here. Coming in through the spinal nerve can be all of our stimuli from the afferent nervous system: pain, pressure, heat, cold, okay, vibration. And as it comes in on pseudo unipolar neurons, which collect their cell bodies right at this point here. Again, I refer you back to that pile of knots that we tied the other day. This is the dorsal root ganglion, a collection of neural cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. All of this is still peripheral nervous system. Why? Because it's neither brain nor spinal cord. Spinal cord won't come into effect until we get over here. This is peripheral. The dorsal root is here, continues on, and brings the incoming stimulus in, and it enters in through the dorsal horn. Now it can go up to the brain. It can go down to a lower part of the spinal cord, but that's not as likely because the spinal cord is not going to be doing the thinking. The brain's going to be doing the thinking. What do I do about this? What's my response? Okay. And when it gets a response in mind, the brain sends the impulse downward, and it can come out here at this same level. This could bring in the feeling of pain, and the brain gets it and says what to do about it. But sometimes, uh, you don't want to come back to the same level and exit. For instance, you get a pain on your foot. Okay, well, the brain doesn't send a command, a motor impulse to the foot to take care of itself usually. Okay, although one foot can scratch the other one, you'll usually send it to the hand. And so it'll end up at a different level, okay, and then take care of it with some action of the hand on the foot. The impulse, the motor impulse generated by the brain can get off and go out here on the ventral root and out to the body, to the muscle. Or it can go up higher or lower or much, much lower and keep getting out at different levels. Okay, the neuron or nervous impulse is shared and can actually come out through the ventral root of several spinal nerves at the same time. I mentioned the white and the gray matter. Here's the ventral horn. Again, the ventral root. The ventral root is the efferent root, sends efferent signals, motor signals. And again, the spinal nerve, the thing we're really talking about, it seems like one of the minor things here. There is a connection from the outgoing ventral root into the spinal nerve and over to this structure here, or on this side to this structure. Here's the structure I'm talking about. This is the chain ganglion, also known as the sympathetic trunk ganglion. The word sympathetic in sympathetic trunk gives away the fact that this is the exclusive domain of the sympathetic nervous system, not the parasympathetic nervous system, and not the voluntary nervous system either. In this spinal nerve, we do have afferent signals coming in, voluntary motor signals going out, and we will have sympathetic signals going out and parasympathetic signals going out through here. Although those parasympathetic signals or impulses will not make it over to here, the sympathetic trunk ganglion. Okay, that's exclusively for the sympathetic nervous system, as you'll see in just a moment. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, if you get lost on something, you need to say so. Don't be embarrassed. Here's a drawing I put together of a typical thoracic vertebra. A typical thoracic vertebra. And the bone has been removed in the drawing. You see the spinal cord, top center. This arrangement can be seen in all the vertebrae of the thoracolumbar system. The thoracolumbar system is the other name for the sympathetic nervous system. Reviewing where we are at here, here's a spinal cord with a ventral horn, a dorsal horn, and now something new. It's always been there. It's the lateral intermediate mass. That's where the start of the preganglionic neurons of the ANS are going to be located. But we'll worry about that in a moment. For now, lateral intermediate mass. Coming in, here's the spinal nerve here. It's going behind, not disappearing, it's here, the spinal nerve. The spinal nerve is a mixed nerve. All spinal nerves are mixed nerves. They have incoming or afferent and outgoing or efferent impulses. Here's the dorsal root ganglion again. Here's the dorsal root, the ventral root, going back towards the spinal nerve. They travel together, but in opposite directions. The afferent and the efferent systems in the spinal nerve. In going backwards, sending a motor impulse out this way. I think I have that as blue. It comes out and comes here. I have it going counter to this. This incoming one is an afferent sensory nerve or neuron. This is a motor, okay, different color. The motor neuron comes out. Okay. And what level are we at in this drawing? Typical thoracic vertebra in the thoracolumbar system. That's the sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic neurons are going to come out of here. And I really will more fully explain this in a moment. Comes out, passes this little guy, and goes in through this arm and over. The arm that it went into, the more lateral arm, is the white ramus. And the neuron of the sympathetic nervous system passes through that and ends up here. And this is the chain ganglion, or the sympathetic trunk ganglion, or the sympathetic chain ganglion. This chain ganglion, where I have the pointer, would be paired with the other one on the other side. Below it would be a chain ganglion for an undrawn vertebra, which would be right here. And the one above for an undrawn vertebra up here. I've got enough for 1, 2, 3. And yet in the thoracolumbar region, there are 12 pairs. 12 pairs. So you can obviously see that this is a snippet, if you want to call it that, and doesn't represent all of the system. Now, although we call this the sympathetic nervous system, when we're referring to the sympathetic neurons, because it's in the sympathetic nervous system itself, it does conduct motor neurons and afferent, right here, the afferent sensory neurons in. They have nothing to do with the sympathetic nervous system directly. The brain decides what to do with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Throughout the body, in all 31 levels that we've identified here, you do have spinal nerves that carry all of these different types of impulses, some voluntary, some involuntary through here. But this, I meant for this to be blue, I don't know if it is. This is to represent here a sympathetic preganglionic neuron. It's coming out, going into the spinal nerve. And this is destined for the body, not for the external part of the body, but for the organs of the body. And so here's what happens. It turns in here in the white ramus. In that spot, it may synapse with the second neuron in the sequence, the postganglionic neuron. If it synapses right here, and I do have a drawing coming up for you, that second postganglionic neuron goes out through the gray ramus into the body. It's also possible that the sympathetic neuron comes in enters into the chain ganglia through the white ramus, does not synapse there, but continues on to another chain, and then synapses, and that chain, the postganglionic neuron exits here. This is this. If we have one sympathetic nerve coming in through the white ramus, remember, it is a nerve and it has many, many neurons. They can splinter, they can fray. Some can stay here, some can go down here, some can go up here, but they all will eventually make synapses with the postganglionic neuron. And then they will head out into the body through the gray ramus at various levels. So you can have one impulse coming in, one command coming in, and then it gets sent up and down the vertebral column using the sympathetic trunk ganglia. The sympathetic system is able to send its information to the ganglia, split it up amongst all of the ganglia, and really supercharge the body. The parasympathetic system, you'll see in a moment, does not have that ability. I will not ask you the collateral ganglion. I've written here that it's not covered. Okay. I think at this point you probably are not comfortable yet with this drawing. Wait a bit, and I think you'll get comfortable. I've got more coming here for you. But you do want to memorize and be able to label a blank drawing given to you. Of course, you can't label by writing. I don't like that, but you'll be able to do it with matching.
So Charlie, quick
Yes.
question. Information coming in to the CNS has not been designated yet. Once inside of the CNS, then the brain decides whether it'll go out via the parasympathetic or the sympathetic nervous system. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And if it's going out via the sympathetic nervous system, then it goes into the sympathetic chain ganglion via the white ramus and exits it, either going to another ganglion or exits to the body parts via the gray ramus.
You know, you should be given this lecture. Okay.
Is that's right though?
Yes, it absolutely is right.
Okay, thank you.
When I skip the text, it's because we've already talked about it. Sympathetic pathways. Okay. Same drawing, miniaturized a little bit. Now, I think, as I said yesterday, the afferent system, pretty easy to understand anyway. Incoming sensory information comes to the central nervous system. Okay. Nobody's decided yet what to do with it. That was what was just said. The brain will decide what to do with it. Okay. And if it goes back out to activate muscle, it stays in the voluntary nervous system and would go right out the spinal nerve and back to a muscle, a skeletal muscle. Okay. But if it's going to be involving the sympathetic nervous system, you got to latch onto the fact that that is only the thoracolumbar region. 12 vertebra plus 5 vertebra, actually 17, for the thoracolumbar. 17 pairs of spinal nerves, 17 pairs of chain ganglia, because they're on both sides. Okay, this shows what happens for the preganglionic neuron. This is red, is it not? Is this
Yes.
red or green?
It's
It's
red.
red.
Okay. I I'm the guy out in the middle of 29 Palms who sits at that one blinking stoplight, not knowing if it's orange or red, not wanting to get a ticket. So I wait for somebody else to come along, and then I follow what they do. Really can't tell the orange and I mean the greens and reds very well. Okay, this is the preganglionic neuron. We know that there are two neurons in any pathway in the autonomic nervous system. Here, the neuron starts right where the pointer is, and that's at the lateral intermediate mass. Okay. At this point, the central nervous system surrounds the start of the preganglionic neuron, and that's part of the peripheral nervous system. Here's their interface right here. Okay. That part that is red here is in the peripheral nervous system, even though it's embedded in the spinal cord. Okay, the signal transfers from the spinal cord into the preganglionic neuron. It goes out typically as a motor impulse through the ventral root. Nothing unusual there. The ventral root does not have this large ganglion. It's not going to go and turn around. It's going to enter into the spinal nerve, which is here and behind and comes out over here. Here's the spinal nerve. Now, if this is a sympathetic neuron, sympathetic nervous system neuron, it wants to send signals to the body, not out to the skeletal muscle. So it enters instead into the white ramus, and it could stop right there in the chain ganglia, waiting to synapse with the postganglionic neuron. It could also do this. The preganglionic neuron comes out, follows the same path. It's got information, maybe the same information. Comes down through the white ramus. The white ramus is the only way in to the chain ganglia. It comes in, but it doesn't stop at that one. Instead, it may go down to the next one. It may go up. It may go up and come back. That's kind of needless, but everything doesn't have to have a purpose. The idea here is that this start of the preganglionic neuron can end up at a different level, a vertebra lower, a vertebra higher. It can split also and go both ways. So that you've got, if you would go up and down, you'd have 1, 2, 3 areas waiting for their synapse with the postganglionic neuron. And you'll be able to stimulate greater parts of the body. In blue, I've added a postganglionic neuron. Here's the preganglionic neuron here. enters the spinal nerve going out, wants to get over to the chain ganglia. It's going to make its synapse in the chain ganglia. Maybe not this chain ganglion, maybe one above it or below it or farther above or below. But that first preganglionic neuron in red comes into the chain ganglia. I'm allowing this one to stop right here and synapse right here with the postganglionic neuron. Right here. This could be happening above and below as well. But the information now goes out. Okay, and it goes out through the gray ramus. There is always a gray ramus. There's always a way out. But there will not always be a white ramus. We'll see that in just a second. The postganglionic neuron, after the synapse, comes out and follows down and enters into the body and to all of the organs that are stimulated by the sympathetic nervous system. This little dotted line that you see here, don't let it confuse you. It's also possible that in leaving, it can go out this way instead. This is the major route. The white ramus, always, I love it when you can say always and underline it, make it bold. It conducts impulses into a sympathetic trunk ganglion. The gray ramus always conducts impulses out of a sympathetic trunk ganglion and into the primary ventral ramus. Oh, I'm not going to ask you about the primary ventral ramus, but this is it. This is the primary dorsal ramus. I'm not going to ask you about those. Okay, but I am going to ask you about this white ramus and gray ramus. Now, in the parasympathetic system, first off, back up and realize that you have this setup here, bilateral. I didn't draw this side, just mirror image it. You have this running up the spinal cord for all 31 pairs from underneath the occipital bone at the foramen magnum all the way down to the coccyx. You see, you've got this setup. You have a rail system, a transportation system, a system that transports impulses and can take them all the way to the top of the body or all the way to the bottom and transfer messages that come from the thoracolumbar system. This isn't as pretty a diagram, but it works. Here is the spinal cord. This is part of the parasympathetic system. The parasympathetic system, okay, where are we going to find it? We call it the craniosacral. So some of it comes from the brain, directly from the brain, not even going to the spinal cord. I've got the spinal cord version showing here. And it also comes from the sacrum, the 5 pairs of spinal nerves in the sacral region, and the 1 pair from the coccygeal region. So since I have a spinal cord in part drawn here, we're dealing with the sacrum and coccygeal region. And if you think sacrum, it probably goes a little bit faster or easier for you. Here's the start of the preganglionic neuron. Now, as you recall, in the parasympathetic system, the preganglionic neuron is the long one, and the postganglionic neuron is the short one. Here it is. It's starting in this swollen area here, the lateral intermedial mass. It comes out, bringing with it a parasympathetic motor impulse. Comes out through the ventral root. Okay. Keeps on going over here, over here. Now it's in the spinal nerve. But here's the sympathetic trunk ganglion that we just got through saying. We have it set up at all 31 levels. But this parasympathetic preganglionic neuron can't find a way in. There is no white ramus. It's like a subway. The door is shut at this station. You cannot get in. If you can't get in, you can't make the trip all the way up or down the body. You got to stay at the same level. And that's what happens. The preganglionic neuron finds another pathway called a splanchnic nerve. This is a long nerve that goes almost all the way to an organ. But every organ has these splanchnic nerves. But this impulse is not being divided. It's going right to the organ. It'll hit the postganglionic neuron at the synapse, then the myoneural junction, and then the organ itself. But it cannot get in here. Now, if it can't get in there, it can't modify anything from the sympathetic trunk ganglion. It can't take over. Now, this is going to see if you really understand it. We have a chain ganglion here. We would have another one here. We have 31 pairs of chain ganglia up there. All chain ganglia have a gray ramus. Said that a moment ago. But not all of them have a white ramus. The only ones with the white ramus are in the thoracolumbar region. The cranial sacral region, there's no white ramus. So the parasympathetic system is precluded from getting on board, from entering into the sympathetic ganglion. On the other hand, from the sympathetic trunk ganglia above or below this one, okay, we can transfer from one ganglion to another the impulse all the way down or all the way up, even doing all 31 pairs at once if we want to. If information gets to the sympathetic trunk ganglion from the sympathetic neuron, from the preganglionic sympathetic neuron, and if it synapses here, it's going to go out through the gray ramus. Oh, the sympathetic system can come down, get into the territory of the parasympathetic system, and take over, add to it, because it's got a gray ramus. What part of the spinal cord? Yes.
Can you rewind just a little bit? If the vertebra outside of the thoracolumbar region don't have white ramuses, how are the preganglionic neurons getting in to the sympathetic trunk ganglion?
Oh, I'm probably going to ask you to say that again. Would you?
Yes. So if the vertebra outside of the thoracolumbar region don't
Yeah.
have the white ramus,
That's
how are they
correct.
into the sympathetic trunk ganglion? I understand that they can move between vertebra, but through what? How are they moving between them if they can't get into the
The
white?
parasympathetic. Okay, you're right in the middle of your question. Unfortunately, it broke up for a second, but I think I can fill in the gap. Okay, the area outside of the thoracolumbar region. Here it's basically the sacral and coccygeal. They can't get in. There's no way they can get in. They can only participate at the organ level here, but they can't share that participation. Okay, you have to do, in order to do that, you have to get inside the sympathetic trunk and or the chain ganglion. The only way you can get into the chain ganglion is through the white ramus, and the only levels that have that white ramus are the thoraco and the lumbar, the 17 paired chain ganglia. You just can't get in. Think of it for a second, and let me try something else with you.
So I guess then why do the vertebra outside of the thoraco and lumbar regions even have the chain ganglion at all if it's not utilized because nothing can get into it?
Oh yes, that chain ganglion is full, but not with parasympathetic information. The
Okay.
sympathetic information goes all the way up and down. Okay, so it's here. Here's the parasympathetic route, but it can't contribute to the information in the sympathetic trunk. But the sympathetic trunk ganglion gets its information from the thoracolumbar area, can come all the way up, come all the way down, and then when it synapses, it can influence the parasympathetic region.
So is there another nerve that leads from sympathetic trunk ganglion to the next sympathetic trunk ganglion since it can't go the route that we just learned?
No, it can go the route that we just learned. Okay. This I have it synapsing right here in this ganglion, but it could instead fray. Okay, because it's a nerve. It's composed of numerous neurons, and the neurons can go down, 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 and do nothing but just travel until they get to their destination, which will be another chain ganglion. And at that point, they will synapse with a postganglionic neuron. Whenever they synapse, as here, with a postganglionic neuron, they leave by way of a gray ramus. If you come all the way down here to the butt, okay, region, you can bring the sympathetic neuron down this far, have it synapse, and then the command continues on out through the gray ramus. Okay? The sympathetic can enter into the area of the parasympathetic, but not the other way around. Now, think of one thing. What part of the vertebral column does not participate in the ANS?
I don't know.
The vertebral, what?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, you have thoracolumbar. That's the thoracic vertebra, the lumbar vertebra, the sacral, and the coccygeal. So what part of the vertebral column didn't we cover? I think it's so easy, you can't see it.
Is it the spinal cord in the brain?
No, it's not part of the vertebral. Well, it's part of the CNS. We're out in the PNS. If we have thoracolumbar and craniosacral, what part of the vertebral column don't we have?
Cervical.
The cervical?
Exactly. Your cervical vertebra. Okay. Imagine for a second that this is a cervical vertebra over here. Okay.
Okay.
It can send information out, but in the cervical region, there are no white rami. Okay, so I can't erase it here, but I said the only place we have white ramus is the thoracic and lumbar regions. The
Right.
rest do not have white ramus. So there's no participation here. You cannot get in when there's no white ramus. The cervical vertebra in your neck, they can't participate in the autonomic nervous system. On the other hand, from the thoracolumbar region, we know that information can get into the chain ganglia, go right up to the neck. The neck has chain ganglia. It can synapse there, go out through the gray ramus, and yes, we do get impulses from the sympathetic nervous system that can travel through the neck region, but the neck itself can't participate directly, does not make any command calls, okay, because there's no white ramus there. The only place, there's always a way out. There's always a gray ramus, always a gray ramus. But white rami are only found in the thoracic and lumbar regions.
That helped. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay. I'm going to back up even farther for you. Okay, this is a cervical vertebra. Remember, it's bifid. This is a cervical vertebra. And just a moment ago, I told you it cannot participate in the autonomic nervous system. We don't have a name for it in the autonomic nervous system. It's not thoracolumbar, it's not craniosacral. But here's the spinal nerve, okay? And this little guy coming out isn't bringing information over to the chain ganglion. This is a gray ramus. This is a gray ramus. There's no white ramus here in this model. Okay, so information that gets into the sympathetic trunk ganglion contaminates, if you will, all of the chain ganglia and can send that information out at any level whatsoever. I put together a whole bunch of scenarios, little things involving commuter trains and such with doors that will go in but no door coming out and such. They never seem to end up any place different than where we're at right now, and that is in a spot where we have to do it a little bit more. So I always do this lecture, not twice. I don't want to do the whole thing twice. You don't want me to either. But I will be going over it on Monday, this material, with some new examples for you. Okay. And please, in the meantime, you want to read this. We were down to this part. We were down here. This is the hardest thing to understand. How do you get this chain ganglion way down here? Well, why not? Why not? It's like a string of beads here, another one, and the next level, next level, next level. You go all the way down, but you can only come out when you get down to these lower levels. You cannot come in. You do not participate in. If we want an overriding system, it's going to be the sympathetic trunk ganglia, the fight or the sympathetic nervous system, because that's our fight and flight. It can override everything by sending out signals at all levels through the gray rami. The parasympathetic nervous system stays at its own level. It doesn't share its information or impulses with multiple levels. That doesn't mean that this will only go, say, to the bladder and not go also up to the spleen, because these preganglionic parasympathetic neurons can be quite long. This last paragraph, no cervical ANS input. That's what I was just asking you. The cervical vertebra don't have autonomic nervous system input. We do have 8 pairs of spinal nerves, and there are sympathetic trunk ganglia receiving input from the thoracolumbar region. They receive input, okay? But these 8 pairs of sympathetic trunk ganglia do not have white rami. Remember, there are 8 pairs in the cervical region, 2 around C1. There are no white rami, so any information they have, they can't participate in the autonomic nervous system. They do have gray rami, but only gray rami. That means there's no autonomic input from the cervical region. And we expect this because the cervical region is not associated with the autonomic nervous system. The cervical region is sort of a thoroughfare. Things go through it, things go out of it, but it has no control. The thoracolumbar area has much control. The parasympathetic area has control over a limited amount of material, but only at its own level. Okay, so I'm going to let you either ask some more questions or after the break ask some more questions if you'd like. I am going to go over it quickly on Monday. Okay, I usually take a different approach on the second time through, trying to round up everybody I can on this. Okay. Okay. Let me give you a break if I can, please, till 2:30.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay. Okay,
Hi, Charlie.
this next part will be easier. Okay. Anybody with a question before we go? Okay.
Hi, Charlie.
Let's see, we don't need this anymore today. Okay, where I am is right underneath the lecture that we just did. Okay, and we'll be doing additional models for the practicum number 4. Okay. Here's the bonus exercise underneath. I'm not going to open it for you. You already have probably. Need to fill that out and get it back to me by Wednesday for your 4 points. Okay. The cranial nerves is only for lecture exam 3. They will not be asked of you on anything else. So there'll be about 5 there where you're given Roman numerals and they're going to be asked to name the nerve. You got practice quiz on tissues, on nervous tissues, and then I showed you these yesterday, so we won't review them today. More histology slides number 1, 2, and 3. These are right off my webpage. Now they're here. Okay, so these are not links to the webpage. This is links to the PowerPoint, and it's on Canvas. And
Gotcha.
there's also a great histology test that's been used for years. Take a look at it over the weekend. I'm not going to go through it today, I don't believe. I think we'll have time for today. This is what the examination used to look like in a face-to-face class. Of course, face-to-face, this was always put up with a projector, but it gives you a perfect idea of what the test questions look like. What organ is the slide taken from? And what's the structure at the tip of the pointer? So you try to get all your clues from the picture itself. And the structure at the tip of the pointer is a glomerulus. And we see it here as an answer. So we got to find something up above it that matches. What's the organ? It's got to be the kidney. What organ was this slide taken from? You've seen this slide several times, including yesterday. This is the liver with the central vein here, a triad here, a triad there. And what's the functional unit of this organ, of the liver? It's the lobule. Okay. And the liver was the answer. So I'll just breeze through it quickly. You can see that it's filled with really good looking slides. Okay. And a lot of them that you've seen before.
Does this one also give us the answers, the correct ones, or?
No. This was not a Canvas test. Okay, this was a test that was done on Scantron. So I would like you to, I would suggest, however you do it, it's up to you. But to get the best grade, I would offer the suggestion that you go through that test yourself and mark what you think at least are the correct answers. And I will be going over the whole thing with you on Monday. Of course, those are not the only questions that might be asked. I'm certainly not going to give you that exact test, and I will ask other models or other slides, you know. So simply memorizing the test itself is pretty pretty chancy. I don't think I would recommend that. Instead, learn how to take the test, see what's going to be asked, what is normally asked, and then go back to our material. These three, okay, and also go back to histology photos, okay, pan through those, okay, and the tissues. Well, you've got a lot to do, obviously. Okay, let me go back up there and to additional organs. Yeah, I don't want that one. I did that yesterday, didn't I? Yeah, I did that yesterday.
Yes, you did.
Okay. I showed you that one too. That's in there twice. Oh boy, did I goof up, huh? The goof up is, I think, in labeling these. So many. We've opened up the practice. I think you know this. The practice final and the answers to the practice final for you. It's not one of those that you can click on. It's an older test, of course, but it does have the answers.
And Charlie,
Yeah,
so the two 4-point extra credit things, there were the histology study guide,
yes.
and the other one was, what was it?
They're each labeled. One says 4 points extra credit. Do 728. Okay. And the other one is down here. 728, 4 points extra credit, bonus exercise.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
And do you want us to email that to you?
Well, how else would you do it?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I don't think anybody, I used to use fax, but nobody, but doctors use fax anymore that I know of. Oh, insurance companies, they use fax. Maybe I shouldn't do so much work at 4 in the morning. I know exactly what I'm looking for, but I know I've mislabeled it. That's too bad. Autonomic nervous system. Go to that. No. Okay, I'm going to do something I don't usually do. get up there.
Charlie, I could be wrong, but I don't think we went over where it says 722 additional models for P4.
Okay. 722. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
You're welcome.
What I was going to do is back out and go into a previous class that I'd had and hope that I haven't dismantled it there. Okay, models for P4. It's, now, some of these models, this one I know you saw yesterday. Okay, and when you saw it yesterday, you saw it upside down. Okay, that's okay. But we can review too. Here's the ovary, endocrine gland, produces estrogen and progesterone. Also a reproductive structure, obviously, and produces ova. The ova are associated with a maturing follicle, and the ovum is right here. Okay. Once the ovum has been expelled, the structure collapses over here and becomes this usually yellowish looking structure under the microscope called the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum. The corpus luteum produces progesterone that counteracts follicle stimulating hormone. Now, since I said the word hormone, the hormone lecture is posted for next week. If you want to take a break or do something a little different, you can go to that page and learn some of the hormones, their abbreviations, and their functions. Okay? Because they're all going to be asked, and they're all going to be assigned. And don't worry, it's not a huge undertaking at the last minute. I think we've already got a huge undertaking here. Okay, here's the corpus luteum producing progesterone, and that turns off FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Once the pregnancy is over, or maybe it never happened, or maybe it was aborted, or whatever reason, then the corpus luteum degrades into the corpus albicans, and that's scar tissue. It produces no chemicals. Without the progesterone being produced, then the follicle stimulating hormone is unimpeded and can go ahead and initiate the ovulation. This is a blurry slide. I am promising you no blurry slides on the exam itself, but we can still learn from this one. Here's a kidney. Okay. And a ureter coming out from it. There's another ureter over here, but I would never expect you to see it or to identify it. Okay. In the throat region, okay, we had some of these things on our lecture in the past, and here they come back, not to haunt us, but actually to make things easier. Here's our thyroid cartilage, or Adam's apple. That's hyaline cartilage. Immediately under it is the cricoid cartilage. That's hyaline cartilage. Now, if I turn this around quickly to get to this side, the cricoid cartilage is much more massive. Here's the thyroid gland. You're going to be asked on the lecture exam, and possibly also the final, what the function of the thyroid gland is. And that would be one reason why you may want to get a head start on doing those endocrine glands, their abbreviations, and functions. Here are the cartilaginous C rings, hyaline cartilage again. Turn it around. On the posterior side of the thyroid gland are paired organs. This little spot here and this little teeny spot up here. These are the parathyroids. Okay, the parathyroids are responsible for the deposition of and balance of calcium and phosphorus in the bone. You don't want to disturb them. In days when people used to have goiters, they would remove the goiter, not knowing what else to do, and often remove the parathyroids as well, not even knowing those little things were there. That would condemn the person to death, a very slow death, where the bones disintegrate, where turning over in bed would crack ribs. Have any of you ever seen a person with a true goiter?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, a few of you have. I've seen a few also, but it was when I was much younger, obviously, like 5, 6, or 7 years old in Los Angeles. But aren't too many of them any longer. It was a dietary deficiency that caused most of them, deficiency of iodine. Okay, here's the cricoid cartilage in the rear. Above it, 2 projections of hyaline cartilage called arytenoid cartilage. The vocal folds are attached to this, and their motion or movement causes a change in the pitch of our sound. Here's the epiglottis, which will drop towards you here to close off the trachea and glottis when we swallow. The epiglottis, unlike everything else, is elastic cartilage. This model of the midsection shows the spleen over here, stomach here, not labeled, but I'm going to mention everything anyway. Pyloric sphincter would be about here, pylorus here, pancreas, pancreatic duct. Attached to the pancreas in the large intestine, the mesocolon. Mesocolon attaches the colon to the body wall. The colon itself has the haustra that we talked about and the tinea coli in 3 bands, which contract unequally to cause the formation of the haustra. I haven't shown you this slide. For some reason, I don't like it very much. I've seen better. But for the female reproductive system here, we always start at the ovary. Okay. It's got little squiggles inside there, little diagrams showing the stages of development. We saw that on the larger one a moment ago. Here's the ovary. Here's the infundibulum. Okay. Here it is on this side. Its function is to capture the ovum that is expelled and bring it into the oviduct where it is usually fertilized. Okay. Here's the uterus. The inner wall is called the endometrium. The muscular wall is the myometrium. Okay. This is still the uterus here, so you'll notice that there are some rugae. Then the entrance is guarded by the cervix, which is cartilage right here. The vagina also has rugae.
Charlie?
Yep.
What did you call the little fingers that take the egg again?
Os fimbriae. Here.
You mentioned another name for that area.
The os fimbriae is also known as the infundibulum.
It's in Indian. Thank you.
Okay. This male reproductive model shows a few things. First off, the testes are down here, both an endocrine gland producing testosterone and a reproductive organ producing spermatids. The spermatids that are produced can be stored temporarily, and they show it here in this organ on the side and across the top. This is the epididymis. Nothing here in this model to show you the spermatic cord that we had in the other model. So I'll be reviewing that model again. Here's the bladder. Okay. Here's the prosthetic urethra. You could just call it urethra, which extends through the penis. Okay. And this is to represent, because it's not a good model, but it represents the seminal vesicle. The seminal vesicle, the prostatic urethra, I'm sorry, and the prostate gland. This is the prostate gland. Prostate gland, the seminal vesicle, and another gland called Cowper's gland, or the bulbourethral gland. I want you to know the first two. I want you to be able to identify the prostate and the seminal vesicle. But I'm mentioning the bulbourethral because all three do the same thing. Why do we need three different organs looking different, doing the same thing? You know, some things that you're never going to get an answer to. It's just the way it is. And what they do is produce an alkalizing fluid to add to the semen to protect the spermatids and spermatozoa when they reach the female system, which is quite acidic. Another model, we won't learn anything from this one because it's exactly the same and it has fewer labels. This is the suspensory ligament or ovarian ligament, it's called. It's not on your sheet. I'm not adding it. I'm just telling you what it is. Okay. The adrenal gland, we'll get that when we talk about the endocrine system. The adrenal gland is sort of like the kidney that it's on top of. It has two parts, a cortex and a medulla. Okay. The renal medulla, the center of the adrenal gland, is what produces adrenaline. Okay. The renal cortex on the outside produces what we call mineralocorticoids. Quite a mouthful, actually. Mineralocorticoids. Well, you know some of these better as cortisone and maybe aldosterone. Aldosterone is necessary for retention of water by the kidney. Okay. Obviously, this is the kidney. This is a ureter because here's the vein and the artery going into the kidney. Same thing, just getting to see the entire structure. The two ureters come down and enter into the posterior side. You're looking at a posterior view here, posterior side of the bladder. This is meant to be a male. How do I know? Because of the presence of the seminal vesicles on the posterior side.
Charlie,
Yeah,
these look just like the adrenal glands. Is there a way to tell the difference?
okay. Difference between what two things? Adrenal gland and what?
The kidneys?
Oh, yeah. They don't look anything alike at all. I mean, just look at this on the model. If you were even looking at a cat, they would be actually separate organs, but the adrenal gland is smaller, much smaller, and it doesn't have
Oh.
a bean. Doesn't have a bean shape.
Okay. I didn't realize it was a yellow. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, here again we have the ureter. Well, how do we know? Trace it back up to the kidney. Okay, this is the vena cava for reference. Okay, and so here's the ureter. Come on back. We expect another ureter to join. It's probably this one, but it's not clear enough. Wouldn't dare say. This is fat. And you see this? This is a big sac. This is the bladder. We had a summer school class many years ago, face-to-face class, and this Dutch student, a girl, was in there, gung ho and everything. She was working on a cat, okay, and she found the bladder, and she touched it, and the pressure on the bladder caused the urine that was in there to squirt right in her eye. Not cool. But I came over because she was screaming, and well, it's the first time we got to use the eye wash over in the science math building.
I would have used the whole shower thing.
Yeah, we did, and I looked at it to see why did it do that. I've never seen that. What had happened when we were studying the muscles? Somebody bisected the sartorius and pinned it back up to the abdomen. The pin went through the bladder underneath. Nobody knew. Okay, so anyway, she comes back from the eye wash, just drenched, and I said, "What? How did this happen?" Because I hadn't determined that hole yet. And she said, "All I did was touch this." She did it again and squirted her in the face again, and she had to go back to the eye wash. Oh well. Endocrine structures. Okay, the one here in the throat of this infant is the thymus gland. It's responsible for setting up the immune system. It's responsible for maturating or maturing what we call T cells, a type of white blood cell that protects the body. The thymus is only present when you're very young. And you and I should not have a thymus or even remnants of it right now. The yellow structures down below are the adrenal glands. The kidney is right below it. The kidney has nothing to do with the hormonal system, endocrine system. You're also shown the spleen here. And you are shown the testes. Yes, that's part of the endocrine system. But this structure right here, that's a piece of small intestine. And that's because some books that you read will call the small intestine actually an endocrine gland because it secretes some things that are hormone-like. The stomach does too. The whole body does. The whole body communicates. So where are we going to draw the line on endocrine glands? I'm not considering the small intestine to be the exception. So it's not on our list. Our list, where is it? well, all you have to do is either open up the beginning list I gave you or look at the endocrine lecture. Okay, this is meant to show you the spleen. This is the greater omentum. This is the mesenteries proper, which interconnect the parts of the small intestine. This, well, this little bit right in here, the light color, that's the diaphragm. It's usually shown much bigger because it can easily be displayed. Above it, you have the lungs, and here's the liver peeking through. Mesentery proper, we just saw that. Okay, in this model of the kidney and a nephron, this is the cortex out here. Remember, the cortex is above the arcuate artery and vein. Okay. It's above it. Here's the glomerulus, proximal convoluted tubule. Now the descending loop of Henle, and the ascending loop of Henle is pointed out. There's many things we could point out on this guy. The distal convoluted tubule, now I'm in it. And here's the collecting duct, which is shared, like in any community, a sewer line is shared by many homes. Here's the arcuate artery. Okay. These are the cortical radiate, or also known as the interlobular arteries. Off of them come the afferent arterioles going, and those are very small here. They're always very small, they have to be. And they go on out to the glomerulus. Bowman's capsule encapsulates the glomerulus, but it is rare that you find a model that tries to show that. It's been removed. Sort of like the shell game. 3 shells and a P underneath one. Well, they've removed the shells. If I want to ask any of this, I do it on either the last model or even a better one. This is a minor calyx. The renal pyramid empties into one minor calyx. Where 2 of them come together, like here and here, we have a major calyx. And where all of them come together prior to leaving the kidney, this is the renal pelvis, and this is the ureter. This is the hilum or hilus. The arrow wants you to say what this is. Well, which way is which here? Okay, well, I'm looking at it. This is liver, liver, liver. Okay. And this mass, almost like a sheet of fat, is the greater omentum. Here's a nice clear rendering of the gallbladder, unlabeled, with its cystic duct, and the liver with its hepatic duct, and the common bile duct. This is the ampulla of Vader down here. This would be duodenum. This, want to make a guess what that is?
Does that go into the stomach?
That is the stomach, right? That's a slice of the edge or corner of the stomach. I always ask to see if anybody can get that, and usually one or two people can, because they got three-dimensional thought, I guess, going. Okay, now, something I passed by on the liver, you need to know the functions of it. I've given you 4 in the reading and 4 just the other day, and well, I'm not going to start it again. I was going to do it, but know the functions of these organs. Know the function of the spleen. Okay. Here's a different model of the skin. Here's a hair follicle, of course, but coming off of it is a sebaceous gland, a holocrine gland. Here's a sweat gland, a merocrine gland. It's also known as a sudoriferous gland. And way up here, the epidermis, stratified squamous. The dermis itself is dense, irregular, connective tissue. This is a section through the sweat gland. If there's anything on the model that, like the Paxinian corpuscle, I haven't talked about, and I didn't mean to say it there, you're not responsible for it. Okay, we had this in our lecture. This is the pharyngeal tonsil. Now, some of the models show it longer. It's fine. That's still it. This one here, that looks more like a tick when it's not swollen. This is the palatine tonsil. Here's the vestibule in front of the teeth. Hard palate, soft palate, and this little piece coming down, the uvula. Always a favorite of mine. It's not the prettiest, but here's the arcuate artery and veins, here and here, going out to the cortex farther, to the start of the nephron. This is the interlobular artery, or the cortico-radiate artery, same thing. Coming off of it is the afferent arteriole, going towards the glomerulus, which is housed inside of the Bowman's capsule, which is simple squamous epithelium. After passing through the glomerulus and pressing out some plasma, the blood continues on in the efferent arteriole. That efferent arteriole spreads out completely over the loop of Henle that we're going to follow next, and reabsorbs valuable material and lets the waste products continue on. We start at the glomerulus, plasma enters the proximal convoluted tubule, then the descending loop of Henle, the actual loop of Henle, the ascending loop of Henle, and the distal convoluted tubule, and finally the collecting duct. The capillary bed that originates from the efferent arteriole, all of this is called the vasa recta. And this model of the stomach could be used for other things, but I particularly wanted to use it to show that the internal organs have smooth muscle, with the exception of the heart, of course, that has cardiac muscle. You can also see well the rugae, and really well here, the pyloric sphincter. The pyloric sphincter is the narrowest passageway that food being digested has to pass through.
Charlie,
Yes.
On our worksheet, you asked what type of tissue some of the organs are. Like if the stomach was there, should we put smooth muscle or would we put the actual type of tissue it is?
Probably, I don't have the worksheet in front of me, so does it have a heading?
It doesn't actually ask stomach in particular.
Okay.
It says what type of
Here's what
tissue
I
makes up
expect.
each of the following.
Here's what I expect you to know.
Okay.
What kind of muscle? Smooth muscle. What kind of lining? Simple columnar. You've got to know that simple columnar throughout the GI tract. Okay. I was probably wanting you to give me the lining. Okay. But you can give me more. Okay. If I ask for the muscle, then it would be smooth muscle. I'm not going to ask a question that's ambiguous. It'll be to the point.
Okay. Thank you.
Promise you. Okay. Well, you have a lot to do, depending upon, of course, how much you've already done and how much you already remember from what we have done. There's a full practice final examination for you. And again, the answers. I'll post other stuff probably tomorrow or the day after. And that doesn't mean you have to do it. I'm not going to give you anything that can't be done in the last 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. But I know some people get anxious and they want to know what's going on and they want to get a head start on it. So it'll be there for you. Okay. I will send out a reminder because there were a couple of people, only a couple of people here, not here today. I'll send out a reminder about the materials being due no later than Wednesday. Okay. And on Wednesday, of course, we have our test. I'll give you the tests. I'll mention the times. The one that is kind of oddball is our final examination has to be given at 3 o'clock. And but we have the other test that we do before that, and it works out well. 3 o'clock's our assigned time for our class, so that we don't interfere with anybody taking another class. I hope that most of you are not taking another class right now. Okay. Yes.
So the order of it's going to be the lecture test, then the next day practicum, and then the final exam.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll have that written out for you. You know, I'm not shy about sending the emails. Just please look at it and take note of anything that is important to you.
Sweet.
I had a question.
Really?
As far for the lecture exam, is it starting from week 6, like from 7/13? That's the information that we would be, and then all of week 7 that we would be seeing on the lecture 3 exam.
Okay. I'd have to pump back. I'll tell you what. I'll get that information for you right away. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't want to tell you that it's all of this and all of that, and then it isn't all of this and that. It's only that. See, the last one started. Oh, and I'll have a list of terms for you that you need for this coming test as well. Now, I guess I'm going to do it because you need it. Hang on. Okay, I'm almost there. Okay, it's going to cover tissues, all the different types of tissues. You know, I said you study for one, you study for them all. Okay, where the tissues are located. Okay, the histology study guide. You need to know it for everything from here on out. No extra study time, so you're fine. The integumentary system, I think that's the start.
The respiratory system isn't included on this lecture, Tim?
Which one?
The respiratory system lecture from 713?
Yes, respiratory as well. I didn't include it on the last one, I don't think. I'm going to be looking at that last test. If I did include it, I'll tell you that it's not the case. But the respiratory is there. Fetal circulation is not. Nothing to do with the practicum. Respiratory, integumentary, the histology study guide, tissues, and actually everything else all the way down. Yes, I know I have some things labeled as lab because they're primarily going to be lab type questions. But anything if I ask, like for instance, if I ask what organ is this in lab and it's the spleen, I can ask in lecture what is its function? What does it do? So I'm asking you to just be well versed all the way around. And as you study for one, don't just study the pictures. Ask yourself, what does this organ that I've just figured out what it is, what does it do? Okay. And then you go on to the next one. Or what is this tissue? And you realize that it's tendon. What does it do? What does it do? What's its function? Okay. It sounds like a lot of extra study, but actually that streamlines it if you do it all at once.
Charlie?
Yep.
I don't know if you already have or you will be doing this, but will you have all that information written down on paper? Kind of like the way how you did with like practicum 1 or like practicum 2, 3, and lecture test 2, and like all the other
It's
ones?
already there.
Yeah.
I will do it. I will do it because I already have a link to it made, and I will post it. But you can always go to. You should be able to see all this. Okay, and the list of terms. It's all of them for the final exam. Oh, come on, open up. There it is. Color doesn't mean anything this time because they're all going to be covered. These are just terms that we've dealt with, had on previous exams, discussed. I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. Hopefully don't need an answer. Have I ever not sent you an email telling you exactly what was going to be on the test as far as the topics are concerned? No, I haven't, and I won't leave you, stranded this time either. Not at all. Okay. Okay. If you got a question or think you will have in a moment, or you want to just listen to see if anybody else has them, fine. Stick around with me. Otherwise, I'll ask you to check your email tomorrow and Saturday. Okay. And there won't be anything new on Sunday. Okay. That's getting too close to the test to even consider having anything change. Okay, so you either exit it if you wish, when you wish, or you stay.
Thank you, Charlie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Charlie.
Take it easy, Mike.
Charlie,
Yes.
for module 7, right where it says more review slides, number 3, I think it's the wrong PowerPoint. It only shows like 2 slides and a skeletal muscle. I'm not sure if that was the
Okay,
right.
I'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Bye, Charlie.
Bye-bye. I mean, I didn't mean I'd take a look at it now. When we're finished, I'll take a look at it and I'll change it.
Bye, Charlie. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Thanks, Charlie.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Charlie. See you
Bye.
tomorrow. No, Monday. See you Monday.